Hey folks, Jimmy Ratliff here from Dynamic Independence. I'm also here with Alesa Loftus, who's one of our advocates here as well. Today is May the 20th, 2024, and we wanted to talk to you a little bit today about what the ADA is and when it was enacted. So the ADA is the Americans with Disabilities Act, and it's a civil rights law that was enacted in 1990, and it prohibits discrimination against individuals with disabilities in all areas of life. That includes public life, jobs, schools, transportation, and all public and private areas that are open to individuals, or the general public. So I'm going to ask some questions to Alesa here, and she is going to give us some background on the ADA.
Okay.
All right. So how did the ADA kind of improve the public facilities for individuals who have disabilities?
We'll start out with the ADA mandated that public facilities, so restaurants, schools, hotels, theaters, stores, any place that the public has access to is accessible to all individuals, and that includes those with disabilities. And the included requirements were for ramps, elevators, accessible restrooms, other structural modifications that would remove any kind of physical barrier to accessing those locations.
Excellent, excellent. And before that time, it was businesses could do whatever they wanted to. They didn't even have to necessarily, at some points, even serve way back some individuals with disabilities or make any kind of accommodation.
There was a time where if you wanted to go to some place that, let's say a court building, and they historically had just stairs, people with disabilities, say if they were in a wheelchair, for instance, they would have to go and use the freight elevators to access those areas, to just go in and be able to exercise their legal rights to representation. Say they were called into court for something because there wasn't any elevators.
Okay. So what changes did ADA bring to employments for individuals with disabilities?
So the ADA improved employment opportunities by prohibiting discrimination against qualified individuals with disabilities. I.e., they would not be able to tell them, oh, you're not able to do this job because of XYZ physical or mental disability. They had to provide reasonable accommodations now, such as modified workstations, flexible work hours, assistive technologies, and those items will enable individuals with disabilities to perform their job duties effectively. For example, if someone maybe can't sit or stand for a long period of time, they need to get up and move a lot for whatever reason, then they could allow to have a chair or a stool, like say at Walmart or a grocery store. If they're being a cashier but they can't stand for 8 hours, they can have a stool there. In fact, I've seen them at local Walmarts, and they can sit down in between so that they're not standing constantly.
I think the same thing would apply if there was somebody who needed a workstation that was taller or lower because they were maybe in a wheelchair or had some disability where they were unable to stand for even more so than something like that, or they wouldn't be able to reach the right height, then those workstations can be adjusted
Right,
as well.
and also like the screens for laptops, there's I guess they're magnifiers that would go over the screen to make the words larger even than what a laptop has, the adjustments on it.
Right.
But sometimes those are not even big enough. So to make that screen larger so that somebody who is, say, visually impaired is still able to do the job. So those kind of things are required to be made as an accommodation if somebody has a disability in the workplace now.
Fantastic. So in what ways did the passing of the ADA kind of enhance the access to transportation for individuals who may have a disability?
So the ADA requires public transportation systems to be accessible, which included installing lifts or ramps, and like buses, ensuring accessible train cars, and providing complementary paratransit services. It significantly improved mobility for individuals with disabilities, allowing greater independence and access to community resources. So, say someone is unable to drive, public transit is a way that they would get to and from work.
Sure.
And if they were in a wheelchair, that wouldn't have been accessible at one time because you couldn't get on a bus or a train to go somewhere that you needed to go, whether it's work or just to the grocery store or a doctor's office, because that wheelchair would not fit on the bus. Or they couldn't get, obviously you're not going to get a wheelchair up a set of stairs if you've seen a public bus or even a school bus.
Yes.
I mean, this allows our kids that have disabilities to go to school because they can't go upstairs with a wheelchair, or even if they're using braces or walkers or something, that's going to be hard. So now the buses have lifts that can get a wheelchair on and has space for a wheelchair. So those are just some small things that should have always been available to individuals with disabilities, but they didn't become a requirement until the ADA.
Okay. So we also have things like telecommunications, and that might be internet, and it might be telephone systems, things like that. How were those things affected by the passing of the ADA?
The ADA mandated that telephone and internet companies provide nationwide relay services, allowing individuals with hearing or speech disabilities to communicate via the phone. And it also required that video programming be accessible through closed captioning, which facilitates a better access to information and entertainment. One of the things that I have noted just in the last few years that's really kind of interesting is on the internet even now for hearing impaired, you have the closed captioning, but for visually impaired, they have the voiceovers that'll tell you a description of what is being shown on the site that you're looking at or whatever. And I haven't noticed it being on everything yet, but it is getting to be more and more that is being made available, and it needs to be all the time.
Yes.
But unfortunately, everything is so slow moving, and people sometimes tend to drag their feet catching on. But it is becoming more and more accessible for our individuals with disabilities.
It's a good thing that's becoming more prevalent. Absolutely. So we talked a little bit a while ago about the children being able to get, to school and having accessibility as far as the transportation goes, maybe on the bus and different things like that.
Mm-hmm.
So what type of other features or accessibility things have been added to create greater access for education for students?
Well, the ADA ensured that educational institutions provide equal access to programs and services for students with disabilities. This included making buildings accessible, offering necessary accommodations, and like extended test times or note-taking assistance, and preventing discrimination in admission and classroom settings, so that no matter who you are, you have the right to an education, especially in our public school systems, but even in our higher education. So now buildings that are more than one floor, which almost every school is now, if they need to go on the second or third floor for a class, they can get there because they have elevators, and they have the signage that is used braille for an individual who is blind, so that they can find the location they're going to. The bathrooms, the classrooms, the exits, those kind of things are marked. There's just so much that they have done. There's lots more that could be done, but now also too are individuals with intellectual disabilities. There was a time, and it really wasn't all that long ago, where if you had a child who had a developmental disability, or even actually, if they had anything like cerebral palsy or epilepsy or anything like that, they would be stuck into one little classroom in, the basement of the school on the lower floor or whatever, and were not in the same classrooms with kids that didn't have disabilities. But since the ADA, and as time moves on and and people are more educated and more aware, that is not happening as much as it did.
So now it's more of a blended classroom where a lot of times children who might have some sort of a disability are maybe given some accommodation to help them continue to succeed in the class, but they are in the classroom with students who may not have a disability as well.
Right, through paras and IEPs that are able to address any kind of issues that that child may need help with, so that they have the same kind of opportunities, hopefully, that other children have.
Fantastic. What about in state and government services and things like that? How did the ADA affect some of the services that are received, or how the state has to provide those types of services?
So the ADA prohibited discrimination in all services, programs, and activities provided by the state and local governments. It included making public meetings, voting, recreational programs accessible, ensuring that individuals with disabilities could participate fully in civic life. So that means if there is a event that is open to the public, politically, socially, whatever, if it's accessible to the public, it has to be made accessible to all of the public, not just people without disabilities. They have to be able to access it. And some events or things might not be, if they have written information, then you should be able to get that written information provided to you in large print if need be. If you need an interpreter, then they should be able to contact and make one available for their program, so that you are able to know what is going on. So sometimes an event will automatically have those things available without being asked. But if someone asks, if they don't have it and someone asks because they want to attend and say, well, I'm not able to participate in this if I don't have XYZ made available, because I can't see it, can't hear it, can't get into the building, whatever, then the company or entity that is providing that show or performance or speech or whatever, then has to make that available to you as an individual with disability. So that is one of the things that ADA has caused.
Fantastic. So what improvements did the ADA bring to healthcare for individuals with disabilities?
It's required healthcare providers to make their facilities accessible and to provide necessary accommodations such as sign language interpreters, accessible medical equipment, and modified examination rooms. This ensures that individuals with disabilities can receive medical care on an equal basis as others. So, for instance, what I was saying earlier about in schools, signage and stuff, so that they know where to go. If they have if they're blind, they have the braille, the well lit up or marked signage. Rooms that are accessible, the doorways are wide enough for a wheelchair to navigate, to get in, turn, not just to wheel them in there and they're only able to be stuck pointed in one direction, so that they can move with ease and feel comfortable in that room. So they've made the exam rooms larger, and for my own, what I have noticed, like at my doctor's office, I don't think all of the rooms are always big enough for a wheelchair or an individual who's a larger person or that, but they do have exam rooms that are available for that, so they would
make
be
that
able to,
accommodation
yeah.
if they need to. Okay. So overall, the ADA significantly alleviated a lot of difficulties that were faced by individuals who have disabilities, but as you said before, as people become more and more educated, that only tends to get better. There tends to be more programs in place where there are less and less obstacles in the way, and people are implementing things that allow all of these different aspects of life to be more inclusive
Right.
for everyone.
Right. And one of the things that you always hear everybody always bring up is like parking accessibility. That's a big deal because if you have any kind of disability, whether it's a breathing disability or you can't walk long distances, say you have a heart problem, like a sick breathing problem, anything like that, those accessible spaces are very important for somebody to be able to access. Grocery store, to go get their hair cut, wherever they go, and they should have that right to access those places free of any barriers, just as you and I are. So, what I would like to know is from our viewers is if you have any questions that you would like answered, or if you have any concerns of something that you've witnessed and you would like to know where the ADA stands on that or whatever. Let us know your questions. Type it in the comments, send us a private message, or you can even give us a call here at the office because we want to answer questions. That's what this series is all about.
Excellent. And in the coming weeks, we're going to be looking at different ADA requirements for building structures and things like ramps, parking, those types of things, and be bringing you some factual information about that as well, where if you have, maybe questions about how large an accessible parking space needs to be, or what is the grade of the ramp for wheelchair accessibility, then we'll be answering some of those questions as well. But yeah, put your questions down in the comments. We would love to hear from you. We want to be able to put this information out so that the public at large can be educated and that we can all work together more efficiently to bring inclusion and accessibility to everyone. All right. Folks, we appreciate you joining us. We're going to do this again next week on Wednesday, and we will see you then. Have a great day.
Bye.